Okay, how's it going, everybody? So we're going to read a letter from Frederick Engels to Theodore Kuno, 1872. This is called Anarchism and Conspiratorial Ethics. So let's go ahead and get into this. Came out London, January 24th, 1872. Bakunin has a peculiar theory of his own, a medley of Proudhonism and communism. The chief point concerning the former is that he does not regard capital, i.e. the class antagonism between capitalists and wage workers, which has arisen through social development, but the state as the main evil to be abolished. While the great mass of the social democratic workers hold our view that state power is nothing more than the organization which the ruling classes, landowners and capitalists, have provided for themselves in order to protect their social privileges, Bakunin maintains that it is the state which has created capital, that the capitalist has his capital only by the grace of the state. As therefore, the state is the chief evil. It is above all the state which must be done away with, and then capitalism will go to blazes of itself. We, on the contrary, say, do away with capital, the concentration of all means of production in the hands of the few, and the state will fall of itself. The difference is an essential one. Without a previous social revolution, the abolition of the state is nonsense. The abolition of capital is precisely the social revolution, and involves a change in the whole mode of production. Now then, inasmuch as to Bakunin the state is the main evil, nothing must be done which can keep the state, that is, any state, whether it be a republic, a monarchy, or anything else alive. Hence complete abstention from all politics. To commit a political act, especially to take part in an election, would be a betrayal of principle. The thing to do is to carry on propaganda, heap abuse upon the state, organize, and when all the workers, hence the majority, are won over, depose all the authorities, abolish the state, and replace it with the organization of the International. This great act, with which the millennium begins, is called social liquidation. All this sounds extremely radical and is so simple that All this sounds extremely radical and is so simple that it could be learned by heart in 5 minutes. That is why the Bakunist theory has speedily found favor also in Italy and Spain among young lawyers, doctors, and other doctrinaires. But the mass of the workers will never allow themselves to be persuaded that the public affairs of their countries are not also their own affairs. They are naturally politically minded, and whoever tries to make them believe that they should leave politics alone will in the end be left in the lurch. To preach to the workers that they should in all circumstances abstain from politics is to drive them into the arms of the priest or the bourgeois Republicans. Now, as the International, according to Bakunin, was not formed for political struggle, but to replace the old state organization as soon as social liquidation takes place, it follows that it must come as near as possible to the Bakunist ideal of future society. In this society there will above all be no authority. For authority equals state, state equals absolute evil. How these people propose to run a factory, operate a railway, or steer a ship without a will that decides in the last resort, without single management, they of course do not tell us. The authority of the majority over the minority also ceases. Every individual in every community is autonomous. But as to how a society of even only 2 people is possible unless each gives up something of his own autonomy, Bakunin again maintains silence. The nucleus of the Bakunin crowd consists of a few dozen people in the Jura, those whose whole following amounts to scarcely 200 workers. Their vanguard is made up of young lawyers, doctors, and journalists in Italy, who everywhere now act as spokesmen of the Italian workers. A few of their brand are in Barcelona and Madrid. Every now and then, you will find one, hardly ever a worker, in Lyons or Brussels. Here there is a single specimen, Robin. The conference, this is a reference to the London Conference of the First International held in 1871. The conference convoked under the pressure of circumstances in lieu of the Congress that had become impossible, served them as a pretext. And since most of the French refugees in Switzerland went over to their side, because they, being Proudhonists, found so many a kindred soul among them, and for personal reasons, they sallied forth on their campaign. Malcontent minorities and unrecognized geniuses may naturally be found everywhere in the International. and these were counted upon not without reason. At present, their fighting strength is as follows. Bakunin himself, the Napoleon of his campaign. One is Bakunin himself, the Napoleon of his campaign. 2, the 200 Jurassians and the 40-50 members of the French section, refugees in Geneva. 3, in Brussels, Hinz, editor of the Liberté, who, however, does not come out openly for them. 4, here the remnants of the French section of 1871, which we have never recognized and which has already split into 3 mutually hostile parts. And the General Council will certainly not call an extraordinary Congress just to please a few bumptious intriguers. So long as these gentlemen keep within legal bounds, the General Council will gladly let them have their way. The coalition of the most diverse elements will soon fall apart. But as soon as they start anything against the rules or the Congress resolutions, the General Council will do its duty. If you reflect upon the fact that these people have launched their conspiracy precisely at the moment when a general hue and cry is being raised against the International, you cannot help thinking that the International sleuths must have had a hand in the game. And so it is. How far the Russian police is involved is this. I shall leave as a moot question for the present, but Bakunin was deeply embroiled in the Nechayev affair. He denies it, of course, but we have the original Russian reports here. And since Marx and I understand Russian, he cannot put anything over on us. Nechayev is either a Russian agent provocateur or, anyhow, acted as if he were. Moreover, Bakunin has all kinds of suspicious characters among his Russian friends. I would also ask you to be rather discreet with all people connected with Bakunin. It is in all sects to stick together and intrigue. You may rest assured that any information you give them will immediately be passed on to Bakunin. It is one of his fundamental principles that keeping... What does it say? That keeping... One second. Got a page here. I think these... Yeah, there we go. That keeping promises and the like are merely bourgeois prejudices, which a true revolutionary must treat with disdain to help along the cause. In Russia, he says this openly. In Western Europe, it is secret lore. Yours, Frederick Engels. It's kind of interesting because the way people could do things then is that, I mean, I guess language is still an issue, but, learning languages really helps. Here in the U.S., very few people speak multiple languages. I speak Spanish and English, and I'm literate in Cherokee, and that's it. That's a lot more than what usually is spoken in the United States. It's usually just English, and so if we have a mistranslation of what Korean is, well, that makes wonderful, scary stories about North Korea in our media. If you have we don't speak Mandarin or Cantonese, there's it makes for really scary stories, mistranslations in about Hong Kong and mainland China. That's kind of how it always is. They can't do so much with Cuba, and I've noticed that with Cuba, there's a little more of the popular, I guess, defense of here among, say, the lefts, like what a Bakunin would be, and this may be because there's much more of a clear path to what is actually going on in Cuba, because there's going to be more people here that speak Spanish. This is not going to be the case in China and North Korea. Here they're just made out to be big scary states and never stopping to ask, well, wait a minute, what is how does the state not reliant on the people? Isn't the state always reliant on the people inevitably? Because the people are who carry out the production and not the state, so it's that's kind of the silly idea that the state is just the state. What's interesting about it is the state is what has to get replaced for colonialism to end, and for post-colonialism to begin, capitalist state to end, and communist state to begin. So, but here you have these random people pop up, and all of a sudden, the last thing we, like Kropotkin would always say, that if anarchism, if there's no state, or if there's a state, then communism shouldn't be if it has a state. It's like, well, that's nice for him because he lives in France, and during this time, France had an empire all over the world and was oppressing, countries all over the world, and they were extracting, like Vietnam and whatnot. So, but he was living in the middle of the economy, just not liking being told what to do. It's like, or the mainland economy, So that's easy for him to do that, to say, well, without anarchism, there shouldn't be communism. It's like, well, okay, white boy, you know. So yeah, that's a letter of Engels wrote about Bakunin. That was, let me get the name on this again. Anarchism and Conspiratorial Ethics, which was a letter from Frederick Engels to Theodore Kuhne. So yeah, well, thank y'all for tuning in. You know, that was 1872. Thank y'all for tuning in. You know, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Medium, all these are Marxist Saw. Hit me up there, and also YouTube. You're probably hearing it on YouTube. Subscribe, follow the channel, and y'all have a great day. And the Goy.